Boa tarde, amigos da Expo. Estamos com mais uma edição da Talks agora, com Anton Kabanen, da banda Beast in Black. Hello, Anton. Thank you for being with us today.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to receive you with us. We want to talk a little bit about your new album, about Dark Connection, and the process of composition. We heard some songs already, and we noticed some influences of synths, of gaming soundtrack. How is this for you?
Well, I think at this point of my life, I clearly realized that it's always the sum of all of your influences since childhood. You know, when you like something, when you enjoy music or a film or a book or a painting, things you like in art, you save them in the subconscious, and when you start creating something on your own, the natural flow that you have, it consists of those things that you actually absorbed throughout your life. So that's where the inspiration comes from. Always, it's not just metal bands, like some bands like Judas Priest, Manowar, or Wasp, because they are the main metal band influences for me personally. But it's much more than that, you know. Heavy metal is like a frame. Beast in Black is a heavy metal band, and we have this frame, but we always go outside of it a little bit. We kind of add Italo disco, Eurobeat, symphonic music, pop music, hard rock, AOR, gaming music from Nintendo, Sega, or old Windows DOS games, whatever. There's no limitations for that. So that's how actually the songwriting has been to me always, in my professional career. Dark Connection is no exception. It's just a sum of all the past experiences and inspirations. And the clear difference what happened with this album, though, is the cyberpunk theme. It was clear already in 2018 to me that, okay, after From Hell with Love album, I definitely want to go back to cyberpunk. And I had no idea what kind of songs there will be on the third album or what kind of lyrics there will be. I just knew the overall theme. I want cyberpunk. That's all. And it's because it's a return to my roots. With my previous band, Battle Beast, I wrote 3 albums, and the 2 first albums were heavily influenced by cyberpunk. So to me, it's kind of going back where it all started. But for Beast in Black, it's a fresh kind of a profile.
That's true. I noticed there. I only heard the first 2 singles, but Marcos of Nuclear Blast told me that the full album is huge, it's amazing.
Okay. The thing I most heard is the thing you said on the release, for example, about when you heard the MIDI versions of the songs, you couldn't get those songs from your head. And I got the same feeling after hearing your album. I couldn't get rid of it. I'm hearing it every day because it's so addictive. I don't know what you did this time, but every song is such an I don't know if this is production, mastering, or something that it can't go out of my head. I have Moonlight Rendezvous in my head all day long, and I hear a lot of music.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to hear, but I'm also sorry if it starts to annoy you. So,
but did it annoy you somehow as well, or not?
No. So, sometimes when I have a fever or when I'm ill, and it happens to me that some melodies or riffs are just in my head and I want to go to sleep, but I can't because they just keep ringing in my head, and I'm like, shut up, I don't want to hear any music. I can't. And I know the feeling when something is stuck in your mind, you don't want to hear it, but it's there. It can become irritating. But like, let's say if the song itself is still like enjoyable, then I'm happy. But I hope that it will not be too irritating. Like
no, by the contrary, I think that you found the perfect way to express your music using the tools you have, and this is such an amazing thing to have. And when I hear the whole album, I think I have especially when I hear your versions of cover versions for battle hymns and and Michael Jackson. I said, why did Anton did a cover for Michael Jackson? And is Michael Jackson just an influence for you?
It's just like what I told earlier, that all the things throughout your life that you enjoyed are your influences, and it just happens to be so that that particular song has been influencing me, or I mean, it's something that has been stuck in my mind ever since I first heard it. And when we talked about it with Yannis, that hey, what if we cover that song? It was instantly like, yes, we both kind of could imagine that song as a Beast in Black version in our minds, because it has those essential elements what Beast in Black song has, which is a clear, catchy chorus melody, good melodies in the verses, and a really like similar chord progressions what we use. There's only like 3 or 4 chords in the whole song, and a like simple, steady, rhythmical backbone. There's one rhythmical loop that goes on. Of course, in Beast in Black we have sometimes, you know, a bit more than just one, but mainly it's really simple what happens in the drum section in Beast in Black. It's really straightforward rhythms that drive the song on, and then you just use the same type of chord progressions. And we didn't see like a Michael Jackson song or the Manowar song that different from each other in their essence. I mean, if you grab an acoustic guitar and play that Manowar song, like, and sing the melody, and then you take the Michael Jackson song, play the chords, sing the melody, you notice that, hey, they are not that different.
That's true.
They are same type of chord progression, same kind of melodicness in them, you know, catchiness and simplicity, strong lyrics as well. So we want to think outside of the boundaries of genres, you know, but still we are a heavy metal band, but we think outside the box, and we kind of bring that stuff outside the box closer to the heavy metal kind of frames.
You have more places to explore, thinking by that way, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I love the theme you used, and I see a lot of Isaac Asimov influence as well. You must have seen the movie or read the book I, Robot like a million times. And I see that on My Dystopia, on the lyrics. I see that on other Revengeance Machine. I see that too. So I know that you like anime as well. So Battle Angel Alita did some work here too. So your influences are, I see you love Berserk. There's Berserk as well. So how do these influences interfere in your music? How do you think about these influences and put them into your music?
Well, you have to trust your instinct. I guess that's the closest of a truthful answer that I can give. It's really sometimes, or almost all the time actually, it's kind of a controlled chaos when you're kind of collecting the ideas and trying to find a way how to bring stuff together. You know, what I mean by controlled chaos is that there's all the time stuff in your mind. It goes through like this, from like a flow, you know, and you just to try to realize what's there and grab something along the way and think about it, process it for some time. When you think that you hit a wall, then you, okay, let it be, move on to the next song or idea, and gradually like build up the songs, you know, and the themes, and kind of, you know, the Berserk thing is something that's always been part of Beast in Black, and it always will be. So it was kind of a no-brainer to have Berserk songs, even though the overall theme is heavily cyberpunk. But songs like Dark New World, To the Last Drop of Blood, Broken Survivors, they are those three songs that have nothing to do with cyberpunk. But what I think makes the whole album still sound like a coherent wholeness is that, you know, music is a kind of a magical language that can connect themes and worlds that are like far apart from each other. You know, Berserk and cyberpunk, they are like extreme ends, but with music you can bring them closer, and with metaphors, you know, in Berserk songs there's, you know, it's emotional. When you read the lyrics, there's something strong going on. And the same thing with the cyberpunk songs, because I was dealing with kind of humans and humanoid robots relationships on the emotional side of things, instead of going into the high-tech side of things and just writing, you know, about how awesome or fancy the high-tech stuff is. I wanted to imagine a world where, okay, this high-tech stuff, it's already part of our mundane lives. And when you are living next to a robot, that you cannot tell that it's a robot because it's so human. It has all the human features, and it can feel, it can have empathy and feel sadness and joy and whatnot. But it would still not have the same rights or treating what a human being has. And that kind of is a fascinating topic, like morally speaking and ethically speaking. Like, what will we actually do if that becomes reality someday, when those creatures become real? If you think about like kids, you know, kids play with toys like the toys are real living entities, you know.
Yeah.
This is just like same thing. Adults also, like, I think we are just kids in a grown-ups bodies, and we can but actually I want to say one thing. It's interesting what I heard in a Japanese documentary once. Can't remember exactly what the documentary was entirely about, but there was a part of it that said that in Japanese culture, God is not something, or soul, it's not something like one thing, or that is in a living thing. It's all around, it's everywhere, it's in the objects, in the things around us. So robots are things, but they are also made of something, so they maybe have some kind of a energy or soul or something. Maybe this is far-fetched, but anyway, this is like food for thought and imagination.
Yeah.
We can talk like for hours about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your guitar solos, and when you hear the album, it's like amazing. The guitar solos you had to put aside to put synthesizers in, because sometimes you hear synthesizers, but you think, oh, there comes the solo with the guitar solo. How did you put those things aside, knowing where to put the synthesizer and where to put your guitar solo? Because I saw like Herman Lee listening from Dragon Force, listening to your songs live on Twitch. And he said, oh my God, let me do that, what Anton does. And he said, oh my God, the synthesizer, it's too fast. Where did you put like the guitars and the synthesizers, and how did you manage to match the fastness of a riff and the synthesizer?
I don't know. It's all about what I hear in the head, you know. If I hear something in the head and I'm clear with it, hey, this is so obvious, I have to have it on the album. So then you just like put it there, you record it, or like write it, make the arrangement, and then record it. It's difficult to explain, but it's just, I don't want to sound like too like cocky or arrogant, but you know, songwriting is easy and fun for me. It's never a really challenge, or if it's challenging, it's, you know, musical challenges are fun. Even if it's something difficult, I'm never afraid of those. I'm more excited and how will I fix this kind of a thing, or how will this song continue? It's just so much fun, you know, writing stuff and not thinking about anything but the song. You close the whole outside world from yourself when you're working on a song, and you're in your own bubble, so to speak. And what happens is what happens. So I can't really. Maybe it's easier if you kind of point out really like a specific part of a specific song, and then I might be able to say, yeah, I remember, okay, how I thought about this part. But if I have to speak generally about the overall album, why did I do things the way I did?
I think it's easier to create than to explain about it.
But the solo
about
for
feeling,
the solo for Moonlight Rendezvous, the main solo for when you do the bridge for the solo, that is the part that he was trying to play, and he said, oh my God, the synthesizers come in afterwards, so it's like it gets quick in when you do the bridge to the main chorus again. So that was the part that he was trying to do the same, and he couldn't, because it was too fast. After with the synthesizers got the rest. So it's kind of weird, because I thought the quickness of the fingers don't matter. It's like the same thing for a synthesizer doing the same on guitar, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not still so clear about what part to say, but in Moonlight Rendezvous there are the two guitar solos. First Kasper's solo, then my solo, and then there's the breakdown part, the quiet part.
Yeah, that's the breakdown. Yeah, the breakdown that goes down to the main song, to the main theme of the song. That's the part that he was trying to do, but he said, let me hear the other One Night in Tokyo. Let's see if that's easier. It's kind of weird how you guys identify the how you play guitars together. So sometimes people just say, "Oh, this is complicated."
And Anton, talking about the production of the album, especially in the pandemic times, how did you handle to work in the production and working with the another musicians?
Well, actually,
different countries and so.
Yeah, it wasn't any different than previously. We always work in a way that I send the songs to the guys, they do their homework, they know what to play, and then in the studio they do their stuff when they come to the studio, and that's about it. So they don't send me any files, you know. They didn't send me any files like in this album. They just played their parts and went home. You know, with Kasperi, I remember he spent quite a lot of time, you know, in composing his solos, maybe 2 months or something. He came to record them. I think we were done with 1 day or 1.5 days. And that's it, because he knew exactly what to play. And it made it easy for me in the studio. So I just have to be there, like push record and stop. And we don't have to think about, okay, what shall we do here? He's really well prepared. And when it comes to singing, Yannis is really talented, not just in singing, but in a musical way. He understands the context where he is putting his voice into. And he understands the importance of interpretation, the drama, what the melody needs, he reads the lyrics, tries to get into the right kind of a mental state for that lyric and the melody that he's going through. And he can do amazing, like, kind of adjusting himself to make that happen in a short time. He's in the studio and just goes in the vocal booth, and I push record as many times as needed, and he just says, okay, again, and we do it as many times as necessary, and then we together select the vocal takes, and edit the stuff, and we see eye to eye 99.9%. So it's really easy with him in the studio because we have the same quality standards, especially when it comes to vocal takes, vocal production, and that's how it's been since the debut album. And we've just grown to know each other more and more. So we're even more aware of each other's we read our minds more frequently now without even like saying any words. We kind of understand each other in a non-verbal way. Like we just hear something after what was recorded, and we understand if something was good or bad. We don't have to tell each other if that was shit, or that was great. We see the same things, we hear the same things, and that we've learned knowing our kind of abilities, and that has made it kind of easier. But nonetheless, it still took more time to make this album because we are more and more obsessed in the detail, and the pandemic gave us the time that otherwise we wouldn't have had. So yeah,
of course, you had more time to think in the compositions and all of the technical details.
Well, not the compositions, because the songs were written before pandemic. Mostly.
Already written? Yeah. Only the lyrics. I think I did some final adjustments in the beginning of 2020, but mostly it was writing lyrics from the beginning of 2020 until the summer of 2020. So about half a year of writing the lyrics. That's always kind of the more difficult part for me, for many reasons, because I'm so careful about the detail, how
each syllable and word and meaning and tones of some vowels sound. I go like so neurotic with the lyrics, every word. So that's why it took time also. But yeah, the compositions were done earlier. It's mostly the recording, editing, producing, mixing, and mastering that took the time.
And you do the mixing by yourself, right?
Yeah. Janis was with me there for the last 2 or 3 weeks. He also did some additional mixing helping for me. But mostly it was like mixed by me and produced as well. So the same way like in the first album and the second album.
Yeah. No, congrats. It's really hard for the artist to mix your own job. It's not easier.
No.
Yeah, you know.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. I write my own songs also, and I put another guys doing the mixing because it's not an easy job. It takes hours and hours and hours, and you can be your worst customer, you know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's a never-ending story. Well, our event, Anton, is about horror and sci-fi. So I want to know a little bit about your relationship with horror movies. Did you enjoy that genre also?
I like the older horror films. I'm not a huge horror film fan, but classics like the first Alien, I consider that as a horror film. Even though
it's horror for sure. Yeah.
Because it's kind of fiction, but it's kind of deep space terror. So that's one of my favorite films, not just favorite horror film, but generally one of my favorite films. And the first Hellraiser, which was the directorial debut from Clive Barker. He wrote it and directed it, and there's something really, I don't know, there's something in that why I like it, even though I'm not a fan of gore and all that kind of ugly stuff, but it's also so interesting. It's mystical and all that stuff. And my favorite manga, Berserk, it clearly has influences from Hellraiser. I've seen it already back in 2006 when I first watched the anime, the first season that came in 97. I thought in the last 2 episodes, wow, this is like from Hellraiser, what's going on there. It was so obvious to me. I don't think I've read any interview from the author of Berserk where he talks about where are those like creatures from in those 2 last episodes in the first season of the anime. But
God Hand.
Yeah, God Hand, exactly. I think it's because no one has asked him ever that, hey, have you been inspired by Hellraiser? And that's something I would have liked to ask him if he wouldn't have died this year in May, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like it's the reference is so clear with the God Hand. And apart from Hellraiser, there's this, was it from 1997, this Cube by Vincenzo Natali. It's a low-budget horror flick, which was a huge success. I really like that. It was like a really good movie, and it shows that you don't need a big budget to make a movie that resonates in you and that somehow gets you inside the movie. You are there with the characters, you're feeling it, and you're there. So these are a few examples what I like when it comes to horror, like deep space terror. And then there's the stuff that happens on Earth, and then there's the psychological horror, which is Cube. So a bit different horror categories. So
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Hellraiser is really special, and Clive was outstanding.
Yeah.
But to say you're not fond of gore, Berserk has only gore in its pages.
Yeah.
It's anime. It's different.
No, it's actually that is like what I actually good that you mentioned it, because that's what people see on the surface. And I think what got me into Berserk is the philosophical side, the psychological and emotional side, most of all. The depth of the characters, the vulnerability of the characters, the development of the characters. They are not flat characters. They grow steadily, and it takes time for them to grow. So the author really put his heart and soul into it, instead of just making some like stereotype hero characters that are so seen and like already seen it and okay, boring. You know exactly what to expect from some character, but there's always some kind of a growth in them. And you see that what they sometimes, like the dialogues that are there, what they say, it bears a lot of like truth and meaning and makes you think. It provokes thought. And that was the thing that really made me fall in love in Berserk. And the gore and the fantasy stuff, the supernatural stuff, it's just like, it's kind of a background. You need to have a background for the story, like where you put these main characters who deal with their like problems. So the background just happens to be this fictional medieval world with these demons and apostles and knights and lords and kingdoms and whatnot. But it's essentially about the mission of these individuals. What are they? How they are living their lives, and what they want from their lives. How do they solve their problems, and how they are torn between these dilemmas, like when they have to choose between, and neither of the choices are actually so good, clearly good. It's always like, so, and that's how you kind of relate to them. It's like in real life. It's not so black and white, so much more the kind of gray area and all the different tones. But yeah, gore is there as well, as you said. So it's part of Berserk, the horror, yes. But the drama and philosophy, psychology, and it's everything. So Berserk is kind of a whole universe.
Which is your favorite character on Berserk? Is Guts or is it another character?
It's Guts and Griffith, both.
Griffith, both. Yeah, I think I think Kentaro Miura based himself as well on Star Wars. I think because he created the Black Knight and the White Knight. So I think there is a lot of the universe that we know is in Berserk, because Darth Vader was the bad Black Knight, right? But he wasn't that bad. He had to do that. So it's kind of weird how Kentaro Miura developed his story. But you are right.
Yeah, but have you seen the film Flesh and Blood by Paul Verhoeven from the 1985, I think? It's actually a film where Kentaro said in one of the interviews himself that he took a lot of inspiration for Berserk from that film. And when you look at that, you can see that there's this kind of a leader that decides to dress up in white. And it's a film about a mercenary band. And he said also that Rutger Hauer, who actually stars in the film, he was one of the main influences in the creation for Guts' character. So if you don't know the film, check it out, Flesh and Blood. You know the director, maybe, Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
RoboCop.
Yeah, exactly.
The RoboCop guy.
Flesh and Blood was his directorial debut in America, but it totally failed because it was too much for the American audience. It was a great film, I love it, but they couldn't just it was too difficult and too maybe violent and like unappealing to them. It wasn't so typical when it comes to Hollywood films. And then after that, he kind of re-educated himself in like filmmaking when it comes to this American audiences. But still, that film is great, even though it flopped financially totally. But that proves that art not always, you cannot judge it even if something is a total failure, like from the financial side. I honestly think that's a great and inspirational film and one of his best works, even though it's his worst financially, probably.
Yeah, sometimes it's a matter of marketing and timing also.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. What about your next steps, Anton? About 22?
Well,
and also tours in the future.
Yeah,
I know it's hard to talk about tours at this moment.
Yeah, but we are kind of optimistic about that. We believe that gradually the world is starting to find solutions how to adapt to this pandemic and get as close as possible to kind of normal way of life, so that I'm sure tours will start happening next year, and hopefully we will tour 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, like really massively. We want to squeeze everything out of Dark Connection. And meanwhile, we will most likely work on new material and new music videos and kind of think of the themes for the 4th album and so forth. You know, the usual way. When you're hungry in like creatively, you cannot stop that. You just keep doing stuff. Even before this interview, I was just sitting here with my guitar, like writing a chorus for a song.
Yeah,
it's just a process that goes on in your life nonstop whenever you have that kind of a need to do that. And yeah.
I hope we can have you guys in the near future in Sao Paulo also. We
would love to come there, you know, as soon as possible, of course.
All right, Anton. I want to say thank you for your time. It was really special to have you with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a really nice conversation with you guys.
And I wish you the best and a lot of success with Dark Connection.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Anton.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care, my friend.